Meeting number 24 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Natural Resources. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee is continuing its study of creating a fair and equitable Canadian energy transformation. Today is our 7th meeting with our witnesses on the study, and I'd like to thank our witnesses for your patience for the second time as we were interrupted with votes, but we'll be getting underway right away. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021. Now that we're in session, I'd like to remind everyone that screenshots are no longer allowed, or taking photos of the screen is not permitted, but the proceedings are televised and made available via the House of Commons website. For the witnesses, I'll recognize you by name before speaking, so direct any comments through the chair. For those of you who are on Zoom, there's simultaneous translation. You have the choice of choosing floor, so the language being spoken on the floor, English or French. And all comments should be addressed through the chair. If you wish to raise your hand, please just use the virtual raise hand function. When we get into the question and answer session, I generally allow the members who are asking the question to choose who they're going to be speaking with. And so if you raise your hand but aren't selected, it's usually because the member has something specifically that they're going for and may not get to you. But feel free to raise your hand indicating that you would like to weigh in. For the witnesses, we also use a card system. I'll give you the yellow card when there's 30 seconds left in the time, and the red card is time's up. Don't stop mid-sentence, just finish what you're saying, and then we'll go on to the next person for their opening statements or the next member for their questioning. Okay, just before I go to Mr. Angus, we have everybody back there. We're going to go through opening statements and then we'll get into questions. I'd like to welcome Ms. Briere and Mr. Morris to our session today. And Mr. Angus, what's your point of order?
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at what we have left on our witness docket, and I know we're trying to wrap this up, and I'm getting very, very concerned that key witnesses that we've asked for are not being invited. We had Indigenous Climate Action, Indigenous Clean Energy, the Athabasca Chippewa, the BC Union of Indian Chiefs, the Office of the Wet'suwet'en. We've asked for the Just Transition Center, the Mayor of Calgary, Edmonton, and Wood Buffalo, who have an obvious stake in this, the labor leaders on Climate Initiative, the Workers' Action Center, Canada's Building Trades, Destination Zero, Oil Change International. I mean, these aren't superfluous witnesses. These are people who have a direct say, and I'm getting very, very concerned that we're going to try and wrap this report up without getting the full picture and the full length of voices that need to be heard to do this study justice. And so I want to know why these key witnesses are not on our list.
Mr. Angus, if I could respectfully suggest that we have that discussion at the end of today's meeting. If I could take perhaps the last 5 minutes. We only have resources of the House in the room until 6 o'clock. We're late getting started. This is the second time that we've had this group of witnesses who have very important things themselves to say.
I understand that. It's just that some of the witnesses I'd asked for have been removed from the list, and I want that on the record.
Thank you. And at the end of the meeting, I commit that we will come back to addressing your question. But I would like to get into opening statements. Mr. Simard, do you have a question or point of order?
Je veux simplement ajouter le même commentaire.
I would simply like to add the same comment. I submitted a list of witnesses that was quite long in the last weeks, and I only saw a single one go by, which I think is unacceptable. We are asked to look for witnesses. I don't know how you make the selection, but clearly there's been some sort of inequality in the witnesses that are heard vis-a-vis what has actually been submitted. I don't want to waste any more time. I want to hear the witnesses, but we will have to talk about this, and I did want to speak about the same thing, not behind closed doors.
Ask these questions, and we will get to an explanation. But for right now, I would like to welcome our witnesses on the study of creating a fair and equitable Canadian energy transformation for today. We have from the First Nations Major Projects Coalition, and I'll say if I mispronounce anybody's names when you get the floor, feel free to correct me, please. We have Chief Charlene Gale, Chair of the Board of Directors. We have from the Indian Resource Council, Chief Delbert Wapas, and Steve Saddleback. We have from the Métis Settlements General Council, Herb Blair, and National Coalition of Chiefs, Dale Swampy. And so with that, we will go to Chief Gale for your 5-minute opening statement. The floor is yours if you're ready.
You guys are ready for me to speak?
We're good to go.
So good afternoon. I'm pleased to be here. Oh, sorry, I just have some feedback here. So good afternoon. I'm here today in my capacity to chair the board of directors of First Nation Major Projects. I'm speaking to you from my home of the Fort Nelson First Nation in Treaty 8 Territory. The First Nation Major Projects Coalition is a nonpartisan business-focused coalition of over 85 First Nation members from across the country. We support our member nations with the tools, capacity support, and advice related to corporate structures and benefit sharing models, as well as tools to promote environmental protection and effective participation in impact assessments. On behalf of the First Nation Major Projects Coalition, I'd like to start by expressing our support for the Government of Canada's commitment to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. I also want to remind this committee of the message I left last time I was here in 2021. We need to ensure that the measures put in place to achieve the Government of Canada's target of net zero emissions by 2050 do not disadvantage First Nation communities, further creating hardship to Indigenous communities. In any policy, hardship should not fall disproportionately upon First Nation communities. We recommend that you build Indigenous opportunities into the energy transition, in particular, clean energy opportunities with Indigenous equality and equity ownership of new projects and financing government collateralization of new investments. We empathize that this degree of Indigenous involvement in investment brings value not only to First Nations, but also to Canada's economy in the form of investor certainty. The Coalition's First Nations members are looking for ambitious actions from the Government of Canada as part of a global effort to reduce carbon pollution. As you work to develop recommendations on a fair and equitable Canadian energy transformation, you must never lose sight of the fact that opportunities for economic development for First Nations in Canada have never been fair or equitable. Long-standing disadvantage present barriers to full First Nation participation in the labor force and impair the capacity of First Nations to compete for capital to support project development. The development of a national benefit sharing framework led by the Department of Natural Resources is viewed by the Coalition as having the potential to address First Nations' concern around fairness, equality when it comes to major projects, and the energy transition, provided the framework is implemented correctly. For this to be achieved by the framework, we need to improve access to capital using government loan guarantees, as well as continued strategic investment in Indigenous capacity and business readiness. First Nations need to be included in the strategic planning and decision-making process for the transition to net zero economy. We need to do this so in a manner that is consistent with the United Nations declarations of the rights of Indigenous people. Despite the challenges faced by First Nations, we have many positive stories to share. For instance, the First Nation Major Projects Coalition has been proud to support the First Nations leadership in the development of the Tudeh-Ka geothermal clean energy project led by my home community of the Fort Nelson First Nation. This project is an excellent example of clean energy investment that has enabled a transition away from fossil fuel-driven electrical generation, Indigenous equity ownership, local Indigenous jobs for those previously in the oil and gas sector, Indigenous board management level decision making. All four of these aspects should be at the center of Canadian net zero policies and should serve as a foundation for principles being developed to guide as a just transition. We must use every ounce of our ingenuity to carbonize the way of life, and in order to do that successfully, we need to ensure that vulnerable communities are not left behind in the transition to net zero economy. A fair and just transition for First Nations require recognition that we are starting from a significant deficit in terms of both employment and education. Skills development, preferred access to employment opportunities, and targeted investment are all necessary components of a fair and equitable Canadian energy transition. I'd like to thank you for inviting me to speak today, And I look forward to hearing from your study. Masicho, hi.
Great. Thank you so much, Chief Gale, for your opening comments. I will now go to the Indian Resource Council, and I have two members who would like to be the opening, provide the opening statement.
Myself, Delbert Wapas.
Okay. I'll turn the floor over to you. You have 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair and committee members, for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Delbert Wapas, and I'm the former Chief of Tenachal First Nation and currently a Board of Director on the Indian Resource Council. Our organization represents over 130 First Nations who produce or have a direct interest in the oil and gas industry. Our mandate is to advocate for federal policies that will improve and increase economic development opportunities for First Nations and their members. So I'm very pleased that your committee is studying barriers to Indigenous economic development, because we face a great many, not least from federal policies and legislation. Our communities benefit from involvement in oil and gas. The relationship has not always been perfect, but now it is positive and it is getting better. We are more involved in oil and gas jobs, in reclamation, in procurement, and in equity shares than ever. There isn't another industry in the country that has engaged Indigenous peoples more meaningfully in terms of the scale of own source revenues as oil and gas, and that's a fact. That's why it is so important to our economic development and self-determination that Canada has a healthy and competitive oil and gas sector. But it often feels as though Canada is trying to eliminate the sector instead of support it. The cost overruns on TMX that Indigenous groups want to buy, the cancellation of Keystone XL, the cancellation of Northern Gateway, the tanker ban, the Impact Assessment Act C69, the lack of LNG export capacity, the cancellation of Tech Frontier Mine, the tens of millions we lost in royalties in the past decade due to the differential in price between WCS and Brent crude. These have directly harmed our communities. These have cost First Nations hundreds of millions in lost own source revenues. I think everyone on this committee knows that none of our communities can afford that. The lost own source revenues and royalties are one big thing. But on top of that, these missed opportunities have cost our people and procurement opportunities that probably would have numbered in the billions. When you talk about economic development, that's what's important. Getting our people good paying jobs, getting First Nations owned businesses big contracts, from trucking and catering to earth moving and reclamation, so they can grow their business and hire more people, creating opportunities for our entrepreneurs. There is no sector, no solar panel installation, no tourism, no golf courses that can replace the economic opportunity that oil and gas provides for First Nations. So the biggest barrier you can eliminate to Indigenous economic development is to stop hampering our oil and gas industry. And I note that government is even now considering a cap on emissions, which is drafted poorly will in practice be a cap on production. Instead, I ask that you promote and encourage our involvement by making sure First Nations have the access to capital we need to be real partners in new projects. I know you've heard in the study how that's an issue. I'm also involved. Our chairman's involved in the Indigenous Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation. We've been able to, in power plants, carbon capture facilities, pipelines, and more. But at the federal level, some people consider government-backed loans to Indigenous communities to get involved in these things to be a fossil fuel subsidy. If the federal government is truly committed to reconciliation, the principles of UNDRIP, then you should be supportive of whatever kind of economic development we want to be part of, regardless of what industry it's in. You shouldn't be picking and choosing for us. You don't know better than we do what's the right balance for development in our territories, for our members, and for many other First Nations. Oil and gas provides the best opportunity. It doesn't mean that we aren't interested in other sectors or that we don't want to be part of the net zero economy. But this week, of all weeks, it should be obvious that having a strong oil and gas sector that has meaningful Indigenous involvement in ownership and is a global leader in environmental, social, and governance principles is in the interests of all Canadians. I can tell you that it is in the interest of the Indian Resource Council. And, regarding to the just transition has been put forward without consulting nations in their communities. It was handed down without any discussion. These discussions need to take place at the chief and council tables, not simply in Ottawa for moving oil and gas to alternative energy. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you for your comments. I do want to just check, is the translation coming through, Mario?
Non, je voulais laisser terminer.
I wanted the witness to finish because we've had interruptions, but there hasn't been any interpretation in a little while. So I don't know if during the following witness's speech we could have the proper tools so that the interpreters can do their job.
Absolutely. We wanted to make sure. So let's move.
Chair?
Yeah, I'm going to go to you, Charlie, just in a second. I was just going to say, when we get our next witness, Mr. Lair, I'll get you to start just with maybe a sentence. We'll make sure that the translation is coming through, and then I'll start the clock and we'll get going. Mr. Angus.
Yes, I want to follow up on what my colleague said, because I think it's not fair that Mr. Simard has to always advocate for himself on translation. But, we are supposed to have this worked out. Everyone, there's supposed to be a sound check. So I was having a difficult time hearing, and it makes it difficult to do my work if I can't hear properly.
Well, I'm hoping that everybody did their sound checks, yourself included, Mr. Angus, before, although you're observing today.
They didn't ask me to do a sound check, no, but I'm ready.
Representative is Mr. Desjardins today. But we will do everything we can to make sure that everybody gets heard in both official languages. So, Mr. Lair, if you would like to maybe just take a minute to give us your opening sentence, perhaps. I'll go to the French channel, make sure that it's coming through okay, and then I'll start the clock and we'll give you your 5 minutes. And again, I apologize for the interruptions we're having here today.
Not a problem, Chair. It's Herb Lair, President, Métis Settlements General Council.
Okay, it seems to be coming through. Mr. Simard, if there are any issues, I try to pop back and forth between English and French, but if anybody sees that there's a problem, just flag it and we'll stop at that time. Okay, so Mr. Lair, I'll reset the clock for 5 minutes, if I can, one of these days. You're ready? Yeah, I'll turn it over to you to start with your opening statement.
Thank you, committee members, for the invitation to speak about a just transition to a new economy. Natural resource exploitation has undeniably brought both blessings and misfortune to our communities. The most significant benefit has been high wages for relatively unskilled labor. The negatives, however, are far more reaching and insidious. The high wages have brought with them a raft of social problems, local economies dependent on a single industry, and irreversible damage to the land and environment. These are not values that are consistent with our traditional values, but because of our limited financial resources and reliance on provincial governments that can't see beyond the quick payoff of oil and gas, we've been forced into this boom and bust cycle that isn't good for anyone. The Métis Settlements Accord of 1990 and the subsequent provincial legislation brought the promise of the settlements charting their own course, but reality was self-governance under the auspices of a provincial government almost solely focused on resource extraction. A provincial resource co-management agreement appeared to be the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but the province's dependence on non-renewable resources became ours, and this continues today with recent discussions by the province to now move into mineral exploration. Recognizing the opportunities that our non-Indigenous neighbors enjoy, our leadership felt little choice but to exploit the opportunities available to the settlements and prioritize education and training geared towards resource extraction industries. The unpredictability of this type of economy, coupled with the impact on our land, air, and environment, and most importantly, our people, means that we must do a factory reset and return to our Indigenous values and live in concert with those values and realign our priorities with them in mind. Alberta has told us that we have access to funding through the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation, But again, the opportunities offered through this program are geared to exploitation of our land and people. To follow through with a reset, new additional financial supports and investments will be required to advance our aspirations of food sovereignty and the pursuit of economic opportunities that align with our values, such as new horticulture ventures, solar technology, aerated concrete and hemp construction, as well as Indigenous tourism, to name a few. Some of this work has been initiated through the Federal Strategic Partnership Initiative, which has enabled the Métis Settlements to establish an arm's length investment institution, the Métis Settlements Development Corporation. But with more significant investments, our reliance on non-renewable resource exploitation can eventually become a thing of the past. The Métis Settlements General Council is also hoping to enter into an agreement on behalf of the 8 settlements directly with the federal government on an extension to the site rehabilitation program. The program, which to date has been administered by the province, it has shown some promise, but some of our communities were not able to benefit fully from the program. Greater access will help us repair some of the damage caused to our lands through resource extraction. A just transition would also include compensating us for the carbon taxes our members and communities have paid, while also planting and protecting millions of trees. Ultimately, we know that self-government, rather than self-governance, is the key to truly determining our own future. But our shorter-term goals include working more closely with the federal government on the opportunities mentioned previously, as well as accessing resources for a more diverse education and skills training, and more culturally appropriate and sustainable infrastructure and housing. It is investments in these that will help us set us on a new renewed course that leads us to a brighter, more hopeful future. I yield any remaining time to the chair.
Great, thank you so much for your opening comments. And lastly, for opening statements, we're going to go to the President of the National Coalition of Chiefs, Dale Swampy. So, sir, I will turn it over to you if you're ready to go. Mr. Swampy, are you there? Okay, I see you. If you're ready to go, you can unmute yourself, and when you start talking, I'll start your 5 minutes.
Hello, Chair. We can't hear you. No floor audio.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, Mr. Swampy, can you hear me? We're just checking with the technical team, making sure that we have Mr. Swampy here. I can see him.
Can you hear me? You'd like me to proceed now?
Yeah, you're good to go. Thank you. Over to you for 5 minutes.
Thanks. Thank you, Chair and committee members, for inviting me to talk today about the fair energy transition. My name is Dale Swampy. I'm president of National Coalition of Chiefs. The NCC is a nonpartisan independent coalition of First Nation leaders who recognize the importance of energy and resource development as a means to improve community well-being and defeat unreserved poverty. We work to create mutual beneficial alliances between industry and First Nation leaders in order to advance responsible resource development projects that positively benefit First Nation people through employment, own resource revenues, and economic development. We are very concerned about this government's focus on a just transition. We have already seen its politics destroy billions of dollars in opportunities for our communities, from Northern Gateway to Tech Frontier to Energy East and more. We don't see a transition happening. It's not. Global demand for oil and gas has never been higher. In fact, there's an energy crisis, and the G7 is calling for producers around the world to pump out more. Canada has never exported more oil. We are at record levels. Oil and gas companies are making more money than they have in their history, and and the federal government is making more revenues off of them than ever before. And what about First Nations? Just when we were starting to make headway in procurement and equity shares, the government decided we should limit new projects. Imagine if we had an export capacity in LNG today. First Nations across Alberta, BC, and the West Coast would be on their way to financial independence. Imagine if TMX was in service instead of being delayed for years and years and in bureaucratic red tape. First Nations groups that are vying to own it would have good revenues coming to community supporting programs and needs. It's not realistic to think that if Canada simply stops producing oil, that other countries will stop using it. If the government doesn't want to be part of it, that's fine. But you have no right to stop First Nations from our right to develop resources from our lands. I've heard that the last barrel should be a Canadian barrel because of our high ESG standards. I think the last barrel should be a First Nations barrel. And don't forget, fossil fuels are used for LNG and blue hydrogen, and that these are essential to the energy transition. There isn't any credible source that thinks we should stop using those for decades to come. In fact, it is widely expected, it is a widely expected demand for that will rise. This is an opportunity for First Nations and would contribute to lowering global emissions, getting other countries off coal if we are not blocked from pursuing it. I want to end by pointing out the high cost of a poorly planned energy transition. The crisis we are in now on First Nations. Many of our communities rely on diesel generation. People have to drive for hours to get to a doctor's appointment or to a grocery store. A lot aren't on the grid, and even those that that are don't have the electricity capacity to add charging stations in garages they don't have. You won't find any electric cars on the res. But the high cost of gas, of heat, of power, of food is crippling many of our people who don't have anything extra in their wallets. This energy transition, which so far is just a crisis, is hitting us the hardest. People are suffering in poverty when their communities should be benefiting from the high value of these resources. Your policies have done nothing to prevent this, and in many ways they have exasperated it. There is nothing fair or equitable about what is happening today. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Great. Thank you for your opening statement. I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. Chen. We have you online as well, so thank you for joining us today. We're going to go through the first round of 6-minute questions. And so our first person up, according to my list, is Mr. Melillo. And if you're ready to go, the floor is yours for 6 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to engage with our witnesses here today. I just want to thank all the witnesses for joining us, of course, and for your great important testimony already, giving us a lot to think about, and I'm sure we'll get much more from the questions. I do want to start with Mr. Swampy. I know that part of the National Coalition of Chiefs mission is to combat on-reserve poverty. You mentioned in your remarks the incredible benefits of the energy sector for communities you represent, and I'm just curious to get your thoughts on the potential or perhaps lack thereof of the green energy sector to replace, from an economic perspective, the prosperity that's currently being provided by oil and gas.
Well, we believe the transition to blue hydrogen is the way to go. We know that there is a abundance of natural gas in Western Canada, like in Eastern Canada for that matter, that we can use for the next century if we wanted to. But as we move forward closer to technology, that will give us a better opportunity to get away from greenhouse gases. I think natural gas is the way to go, natural gas converting to hydrogen. And the Alberta government's fully behind us on this. We're developing a southern hydrogen hub in southern Alberta. We have 14 First Nations behind it. There are many nations in Saskatchewan that are organizing coalitions to develop these types of green energies, including biofuel and so forth. In northern BC, for example, the amount of opportunities that's been given for LNG is incredible. They'll be employing some 800 people over a period of 30 years on the coast, something they needed because of the lack of forestry, the lack of mining that is pulled out of that region in the past decade. So I think with respect to the just transition, I think we have to look to natural gas. We have to look to blue hydrogen. We have to look to carbon sequestration and so forth. And we need the governments to support us on this transition.
I appreciate that answer. And Mr. Swampy, you also mentioned in your opening remarks, I believe you said the government has no right, I believe was the quote, to tell First Nation communities to stop production on their lands. And I would certainly agree with you. I know previously in this committee, I asked you directly if, in regards to a proposed emissions cap on oil and gas, I asked you if you felt that the government should acquire the consent of Indigenous communities before moving forward, and you indicated that you believe so. I asked many other witnesses the same question and got the same response. Since then, Mr. Swampy, we had the opportunity to have the Minister of Natural Resources here in committee. I asked him 6 times if he felt that his government would have to abide by the convention set out in UNDRIP and have the consent of Indigenous communities before moving forward. And he refused to answer. In fact, he said, and I'm going to read a quote to you here. He said, "The government is looking to ensure that communities that have a strong interest in this put their hands up and tell us they want to participate." And that's the end of the quote. I would argue that's certainly not an empowering way of doing consultation, waiting for communities to put their hand up and say they want to be a part of it. I'd just like to get your thoughts on the lack of consultation that is seemingly in place with this government and the fact that they're saying one thing about UNDRIP on one hand and then acting in the opposite way.
Yeah, I think there is truth into the fact that the lack of consultation by this government has hurt us quite a bit. The Northern Gateway project, for example, had 31 out of the 40 right-of-way communities signed on in support of the project, not only in support, but were willing to take on the risk of ownership in this project. And we tried to meet with the federal government before November 2016, when they canceled this project. And I know exactly why they didn't want to meet with us, because they wanted deniability to be able to say that we heard First Nations say they don't want the pipeline. We didn't hear any First Nations say they wanted it. Well, of course they didn't, because they wouldn't talk to us. They wouldn't return our emails. They wouldn't return our letters. They wouldn't return our calls. It's an unjust transition that's coming up right now. And it's unjust because the government has, a purpose in mind and wants to make sure they get this law passed. And UNDRIP itself can become a vehicle to deny projects. At the same time, being hypocritical, it gives them the power, because of their treaty rights, to deny projects, us, our First Nation people, but it also gives us the right to approve projects. So we should be able to, on UNDRIP, be able to build our own resources on our own lands and traditional territories, because if we want to do that, we should be allowed to do that.
Thank you. I don't think I have much time for much else, so appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to Mr. Sabera next for his 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to all the witnesses this afternoon. All your testimonies I found quite interesting. The topic we're speaking to in terms of an energy transformation or transition, and I don't mean to personalize this, but I will for 30 seconds. I grew up in northern British Columbia. I know Mr. Swampy, you mentioned Northern Gateway. I grew up in Prince Rupert, British Columbia until I went off to university, and I know Kitimat is benefiting from the LNG project. Prince Rupert's benefited from a number of pipeline projects after the pulp mill closed, displacing literally hundreds of workers, and within that, a lot of individuals losing their jobs, including Indigenous folks that worked at the pulp mill, and I worked there in the summers, and I worked at a cannery in the summertime at Jason McMillan Fisheries to pay for my education, and those jobs are now gone as well. And with that, the Indigenous community was very prominent in working at J.S. McMillan Fisheries and the other fisheries along the coast and Port, for everything from Port Edward to Prince Rupert, Port Simpson, to all those communities there. First, going to the First Nations Major Projects Coalition, Ms. Gale, you talked about a project that you saw as successful. I think it was a geothermal project. Can you describe the particulars of that project and what made it successful in terms of what you spoke about?
Okay, thank you. So I think first off, I think it's really important for everyone in the room to know that this is 100% Indigenous owned by the Fort Nelson First Nation. The Fort Nelson First Nation has been involved in oil and gas for over 60 years. Oil and gas is something that we all need as Canadians. However, in the Fort Nelson area, we've been the highest polluter of greenhouse gas emissions through the Fort Nelson gas plant because that's where we get our power from currently. We're not part of Site C. So with the Clark Lake field where the geothermal facility is being built, it's a 6-year-old gas field. It has now been depleted. So we have repurposed this gas site and we're creating the geothermal facility, which should generate between 7 to 14 megawatts of power. And we'll be able to provide power to over 14,000 homes. But with that comes off the spin opportunities that come with the possibility of what's in the brine, so lithium extraction to greenhouses. We're looking at over 100 greenhouses. We know that food security is one of the main concerns for our people and the people living up north in Northwest Territories and the Yukon and Alaska. So we're very proud of this geothermal facility. What made it successful is a $40 million grant from NRCan. And if we didn't get the $40 million grant, we wouldn't be where we are today. So, Mussy.
Thank you, Ms. Gale. I just, it's great to hear the collaboration, and I can great to see the ownership of that project and that project moving forward. And you're absolutely correct. Food security is very important these days, and even more pressing with the unprecedented actions in Ukraine by Russia. To both the Métis settlements and the National Coalition of Chiefs, you both mentioned skills training, if I'm not mistaken, in your testimony, and I believe there is a huge opportunity and a huge must on the part of governments working, the Canadian government working with Indigenous peoples across Canada on skills training. The Indigenous population is very young in Canada relative to respective to other groups. We need these folks in the labor force. We know our labor force issues. Are there any programs you can point to that we can determine successes in terms of skills training? And I'll go to Mr. first.
Did you want me to go first? Sorry.
Yes, please, sir.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of examples across Canada, but what we want to do is try to focus on reserve training. The most important part of defeating on-reserve poverty is to be able to bring training to our communities. And in order to do so, we need the government to recognize this and to empower regional coalitions of First Nations communities to be able to develop their own training programs. And the reason I say this is because we've had training programs that succeeded in the past that included life skills programs at first to be able to teach our people how to transition into the regular working lifestyle, which means going to bed early, waking up in the morning. Retention trainers who are working with the industry people to try to resolve some problems with First Nation people who don't show up at work and so forth. And then also retention trainers on the reserve to be able to visit the community members who are not showing up for work to be able to see how to be able to transition them back into the workforce. But it's going to take time. Fort McKay First Nation, for example, is probably the richest community in North America. They have a household medium income of almost $150,000, but that didn't come overnight. It came over 50 years of extra consideration that they got from the 6 big oil sands companies. And through that, working together with the community, the community was able to transition from a social welfare society to a producing society where everybody is working.
Thank you, Mr.
Everybody's
Swampy. I
expected.
think I'm out of time, sir. I'm out of time, but thank you for your testimony. It was very insightful. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Saddleback. Somebody else may be able to pick that up when they get to you. Monsieur Simard, we're going to go to you now for your 6 minutes.
Merci, merci.
Thank you. I hope that interpretation will work properly for the witnesses. I'd like to start by saying that I am a little bit perplexed. The presentation by certain witnesses is a little bit contradictory with my own vision of the fossil fuel development. I think that we have to diminish the fossil fuel development if we want to respond to climate change crises. But I also respect the interests of economic development of First Nations. So perhaps the best thing is to speak frankly with you and see what your responses are. And of course, in a respectful manner. First, I would like to ask Chef Gill a very simple question. In Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, the nation Lac-CH was very much against one of LNG, which allows me to deduce that some First Nations are against some fossil fuel projects and that not all First Nations agree. Perhaps in your coalition, are there any dialogues about seeking consensus between those who want to see more development in the fossil fuel economy and those who don't?
Hi, thank you for the question. So the First Nation Major Projects Coalition is a non-political organization, and we're not project specific. The projects that we work on are projects that are supported by the communities. However, I understand that not every community is fully supportive of LNG, but I think that also goes down with consultation and consent. A lot of projects have happened here in my territory with oil and gas that it's not that we were against oil and gas, it's where the project was being developed. So if you're going to put a pipeline through a moose calving ground, then that's not going to meet our values and we're going to refuse the project. So I think it really comes down to consent and consultation and to find out why the First Nation is saying no.
Mhm. Donc,
I understand. So climate change might have a bigger impact in First Nations communities when we talk about the extermination of certain species, the poor quality of air, the loss of certain infrastructures and of inhabitants. We know that there might be a higher or worse impact on First Nations. Is it not difficult to have that discourse when there's also another discourse that defends new fossil fuel projects? I'd like to hear Mrs. Gale and Mr. Swampy speak about that.
Okay, Dale, did you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. We have to keep in mind that the National Coalition of Chiefs and its members are not climate deniers. We believe that a transition has to exist, just like we believe the transition has to exist both in Canada and the rest of the world. We are the leaders in environmental protection. If you meet with the Canadians who run the oil and gas sector, you'll see that they are just like you. They are concerned about the environment, about safety, about integrity, and they'll do whatever they can to protect our country. And I think in order for us to be able to transition, we need to transition to something. I don't think we have an ability to be able to transition to any green energy right now because they're not sustainable. So we're suggesting things like blue hydrogen, biofuels and so forth to start off so that when we get to that technology that can provide us with the development of hydrogen as replacement for gasoline, then I think we can move forward. But in the meantime, we got to be sustainable. We got to react to what's going on in the rest of the world. We don't want an energy crisis in Canada because the energy crisis is going to create problems for the impoverished, and that includes our First Nation people on the reserve. Thank you.
Thank you. So I believe that when First Nations have equity in major projects that are happening in their territory, it's the truest form of consent. First Nations, we build projects from the ground, so that includes our land users. When the Indian agent went on to reserves into our villages to push people to the reserves, not everyone left, so we still have people living a traditional lifestyle and have been out there for thousands of years. That's how we do a lot of our traditional knowledge. That's how we get our information about the changes that are happening on the land. So when First Nations have seats as owners and a board of directors, it's not all about prosperity. We can make the right decisions, to do the correct thing for the environment while we're part of these projects. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, we're out of time on that. Now, Mr. Angus, we're going to go to you. And I should point out to everybody that unfortunately, we lost Mr. Wapass's connection, but we still have Mr. Saddleback here from the Indian Resource Council. So if anybody's looking for a representative there, I'll invite you to direct your questions to Mr. Saddleback. So Mr. Angus, over to you for your 6 minutes.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Desjardins.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Charlie, for recognition. I want to thank all the witnesses today thank you for your knowledge and your testimony, and I'd like to focus on President Lair, if you don't mind. A few questions I have related to Northern Alberta in specific. I understand that the Métis Settlements General Council actually is the largest independent of the government landholder in the province of Alberta, making you one of the largest stakeholders in Alberta in terms of your stake in the environment, but also in the development of natural resources and otherwise. But there's a few questions I have pertaining to your vision for these communities, and to date, can you just maybe elaborate more on what you mentioned in your opening testimony related to the experience of the oil and gas industry in these communities, which are often situated right near oil and gas sectors today? Could you maybe elaborate a bit more on how the oil and gas companies have treated the Indigenous communities that you represent, and what kind of liabilities are still outstanding in terms of environmental deficit? Oh,
you're on mute.
There, how about that?
Perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the question. So we do own 1.25 million acres of land. We have more wells than First Nations people have on their lands. Yet I look at what's transpired with our people. And I just want to say for the record that 30 years ago, I made a deal with Texaco. It was bought out by CNR. The deal was develop the resources in exchange for developing the people. What we received out of it is a whole bunch of our people bankrupt. They were kept inside a little sandbox of our area, told to be competitive with other businesses around them that enjoyed full-time employment. They never lived up to the master development agreements that we had with them. We look at Alberta's policies where it says, yeah, you come into here, you're supposed to leave it in the condition you found it. I challenge anybody to go on Google Earth and look at Alberta and look at sites that are 60 years old and later than that, and you'll find that what are they? None of them the same way as the area around them. They put it down to pasture grasses. They run cattle on it. They sometimes will put the odd tree. You lose all of the traditional medicine, all of the berries, everything that we had that was there before is all gone. It changes the whole landscape. You know, we talk about the impact, We see in our communities different kinds of animals, whether it's the raccoons, the antelope, or the grizzly that don't belong here. So we know that climate change is real. We see the change in the animals. We see the ducks and the geese that we can't eat anymore. We wonder, is that going to be now next? Is it going to be our moose and our deer that we can't eat? And we look at all of these things and we say, we were part of that problem. We were never, ever given the opportunity, like First Nations talk about, to maximize the opportunity under oil and gas. We've always been second thought, second fiddle to everything. When something's closing, they want to bring it to and say, well, here's an opportunity for you now. We need to get in at the ground floor right now of what the new move is for moving forward with Canada, with the world economy. That's why for us, we want to say goodbye to oil and gas. It's still going to happen, but we don't want to destroy our land. And it's like I talked earlier, Blake, that we are the stewards of the land. And in our settlements, in our communities, you'll see there's very few fields that we've protected the trees and our environment and our way of life. And so I take it as an affront when we're charged carbon taxes and all this stuff, when yet we're the people protecting it, along with my First Nations brothers and sisters. And I don't believe that it's appropriate to charge us for that.
Thank you very much, President Lair. And one part that was really interesting in your testimony, you actually mentioned this idea of incentivizing the incentivization of resource development. In many ways, we can also look at our responsibility globally to our environment and to our land, and look to the leadership of Indigenous leaders like yourself who recognize the reality that our planet has just a few decades before we see catastrophic impact to the life of our lands. And this is more relevant now more than ever. You know this firsthand. You visited all the lands. I visited 8 of the communities in Northern Alberta, and I've seen it as well. And this is truly detrimental. But what I really appreciated about your testimony is you spoke about the opportunities that are present to Indigenous people looking forward. Could you elaborate on ways that we can incentivize participation of organizations and communities like the Métis settlements to better participate in renewable projects that are going to both see prosperity in the community, but also help in terms of our global crisis, which is the emerging climate change?
For sure. The settlements moved into what they called budget-based taxation, so that we can actually tax with industrial tax and set in our own mill rate based under the budget that's required the oil and gas companies, so that we make sure that we're getting some money out of them because they don't contribute properly. But I look at things like I talked about the trees that we've kept and for generations protected. And I believe that Indigenous communities should be compensated for the amount of treed area that they retain, rather than try to get paid to do oil and gas. We do all of this stuff because, like I heard one of my First Nations brothers say earlier, because of poverty. We are exploiting our own resources because we are forced to, and we need to get compensation to us in a different way so that we can make a better value judgment as to whether or not we still want to participate with oil and gas, or in fact, we want to keep our Indigenous way and not exploit that because we don't have to. We've done it because we have to, and that's Canada's shame.
So we're out of time on this one. We're going to go now to a slightly shorter round of 5 minutes, starting with Mr. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses here today. I'm going to start my questions with the Indigenous Resource Council, if I could, please. It'd be great to hear some responses as well. Your community's representation as workers in the resource industry is higher than other communities' participation in the resource industry. And these jobs, of course, pay more than any other jobs in Canada, but particularly in your communities. And you're participating. Your labor, your Indigenous regional benefits. Now you're finally getting equity. After years of trying, recognition of Section 35 rights, you've come a long way, and this is very important, and we're pleased to see that progress. I particularly am pleased to see that progress. And yet you've been catching up. and think about the leadership you brought to this. But one common note I heard here from a few of the witnesses, of course, is this just transition, complete misstatement in my opinion, is being put forth without the consultation of the Indigenous communities. It is, in fact, as Mr. Wapa says, an unjust transition. Can you tell me, Stephen Saddleback, how you see this operating better as far as the outcomes for your community over the next decade?
Thank you for that question, MP McLean. And, thank you for all the comments and for allowing us to be a part of the round table today. In terms of, the discussion at hand, this committee is labeled Just Transition. And one of the things that since the onset of this reminds me of a just society that was put forward and which ultimately resulted in the white paper. And what happened with that is ultimately a result of the red paper. And if we look back at the history, that came about because of a lack of consultation with First Nation communities. And that's how this, we were notified about this activity, without having that involvement with First Nations and that being down in First Nation communities, having that consultation with those chiefs and councils, as our board member, former Chief Wapas had indicated. So I just want to have that as a point of order, is to, for folks to be mindful of that, because that consultation does need to happen. In terms of,
sorry, Mr. Style, I have to move quickly here because I've only got a short amount of time.
Okay.
So just quickly, if I can, and appreciate the comments on the different papers that are going there. If I can move to Mr. Wapas now, please. Mr. Wapas, we talk about, sorry, not Mr. Wapas, my apologies. Mr. Swampy, we talk about jurisdiction here. You think about how much you've participated in with the Alberta government, Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation, and also, the education that you brought up here and the programs that this has helped. Can you comment on the jurisdictional overlap that the government at the federal level is trying to impose here to more or less put another ratchet, another regulatory hurdle in your society's social advancement, please?
That's right. UNDRIP legislation, in my mind, is a vehicle for the government to be able to stop projects that First Nations are supporting. Whereas, it's contradicting the fact that once you give power to First Nations to deny a project, you also give power to First Nations to build a project. And we think we should be given the same rights that are afforded for First Nations across the country and across North America, and that is to develop our own traditional territories. You look at Alaska, 13 bills of Congress, and the tens of millions of acres that were given to First Nations out there. They never sold 1 acre of those lands to a foreign country or private landholder. They kept that land and they developed it, and they developed it properly. It doesn't mean that model can't work in Canada, and that's what we're all about. Reconciliation's about land. Give us back the land you signed to us, that treaty, and then we'll take advantage of it.
Thank you, Mr. Wapas. Same question. Can Mr. Saddleback answer that question as well, please?
When we talk about, the involvement with First Nations communities and, energy sector has been a big part of our First Nations, and we can have that balance between economic development and the environment. There was some mention about jobs creation. In the last 18 months, Indian Resource Council has created over 400 jobs, which include not only reclamation, well activity, and cleaning up over 1,800 wells in the province of Alberta, but have created careers looking at alternative energies. When we talk about poverty, we talk about this just transition, and we need to ensure that those communities, those First Nations, which are going to be most greatly impacted by any fluctuation in energy prices. So where are we going to get these dollars when we do these increases in investment in alternative energies and those activities that are happening with a family that's living on social assistance that doesn't have activity in their nation? We're not sitting there in a major center. We need to be mindful of that when we're talking about these just transitions.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're going to go now to Ms. Lapointe, who will have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Aldag. My questions are to Chief Gale. Your organization recently released a report entitled Indigenous Leadership and Opportunities in the Net Zero Transition. And the report states that all battery, metal, mineral extraction that occurs or will occur in Canada is on lands and waters to which Indigenous nations and peoples have inherent and legal rights. And the report indicates that Canada has much to do to realize the opportunity Indigenous leadership provides in terms of net zero economic and environmental opportunities. Can you expand on this statement?
Thank you. I'm getting an echo now, I don't know why. But one of the other important pieces that is putting the I in ESG. In order for people to get access to our natural resources, they're going to have to consult and work with us. And as I said, our members across Canada, which is from coast to coast, from Maui Pupek First Nation to province of British Columbia, we're going to need to be meaningfully consulted. And the truest form of consent to us is equity. We want to be part of our natural resources. You know, when the Indian agent came, you guys pushed us on the reserve and we watched your communities grow, but we haven't had the opportunity to grow alongside with the Canadian society. So that document is, you know, very well put together by my team, and I really encourage everybody to read that document, including the Indigenous Sustainable Investment discussing opportunities in ESG.
Thank you. A fair transition for current energy sector workers is important, but more importantly, I believe, is inclusion for those that are traditionally left out of benefits of the energy sector. So what opportunities do you believe are available for First Nation communities when looking at entire ecosystem or supply chain from mining to the production of EV batteries?
Well, through equity ownership, I see our people not only having labor jobs where they're laid off in the springtime. I see our people being CEOs and board of directors and managers, and being able to you know, make decisions in the corporate world. But also on the ground, I see our people being guardians, land users, hunters, fishers, and trappers. And you know, we bring that information back to our lands office. When we get involved in major projects, there's a huge separation between our economic arm and our governance arm, but we still have to do that due diligence in striking the balance between economic prosperity and environmental stewardship. So that's why I feel it's very important that Indigenous people are involved in the extraction of materials that are happening in their territories, whether that's one nation that wants to be involved or bringing into a collaboration of nations to work together.
The report lays out a list of Canada's barriers to gaining a strong foothold in the battery mineral supply chain. And I would like to hear more details on two of the barriers that are listed in the report. One deals with Indigenous involvement, where you talk about the centralization of Indigenous leadership in the battery supply chain planning and actualization, and how that needs to happen while projects are in their initial planning phases, not just after or later on in the project. And the second one is remoteness. So the relative remoteness of resources in Canada that leads to higher costs for exploration. And what I'd like to know is how can Canada lead in terms of these two areas in helping?
So I think obviously we know that the capacity in our communities are very, we don't have the capacity to make business decisions at the speed of business. So that's why the support of the First Nation Major Projects Coalition is so important to Indigenous communities, because we provide that capacity to make those informed decisions for free. I think mostly what Canada and in industry have to do is come see us at day one. Don't come to us with your pre-planned construction ideas. Come to us at day one, and we'll tell you where projects can be built and where they can't be built. I know that a lot of our communities are remote, but that doesn't mean that we don't have the ability or don't want to be involved into a project, especially if it's happening in our territory 400 kilometers away from our village. So ultimately, I just feel that, you know, if you come to us from day one, we know where things can and can't go on the land. A lot of our nations have land use plans, and they're very detailed. And so I think by coming to us from day one, we can get projects built faster. We could overcome regulatory approval processes, and they can be built on time if we're involved meaningfully. The other thing I would just like to add to that is, you know, First Nations, they just want an opportunity. And, we've been left behind for, since you guys came to Canada, right? And I just think that never underestimate the ability of our people. We're hard workers, and we want to be a part of our economies just as bad as you guys, because we want to put bread and butter on the table, and we want to look after our families. We're like every other Canadian citizen in this world that wants to look after our families. And when I feel that First Nations are involved meaningfully, and when we are involved in a project, nobody gets left behind. But when governments and corporations come in and try to do it for us, we always get left behind. That's just my closing comment. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're going to go now to Mr. Simard.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I believe that in Mr. Lahaire's presentation, he spoke of rehabilitating the land, if I'm not mistaken. I believe in 2019 or 2020, if I'm correct, the federal government had given $1.5 million to clean up the abandoned oil wells. So the question for Mr. Lahaire, but also Mr. Swampy and Mrs. Gale, is as follows. I wonder if out of that $1.5 million, there was any money that served to clean up the First Nations wells.
Okay, I can start this one if you like. So yes, we did receive some of the monies to clean up the oil patch in our backyard, but that's what I find so challenging. There's no responsibility of the oil and gas companies to do the right thing. They left making billions of dollars from the extraction that they had in our territory. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of a bust with the markets and the processing of this sulfur gas. So they pretty much up and left, and now we're left with infrastructure, roadways, seismic lines, you name it, just a pile of junk in our backyard that we're left to look after at the end of the day. Before this had happened, the provincial government sold our lands without our knowledge for $5 billion. So that was in 10 years to the oil and gas companies. We need to find a better way to do things, because it has taken away from my treaty rights to hunt, fish, and trap. Now my territory is totally opened up to anybody to be able to come in to take substance away from my people. And it's been very challenging. So we need to look at a better process and have more responsibility going back to these corporations that are coming into our territories.
Je sais pas si Monsieur Lahaire veut.
I don't know if Mr. Lahaire would like to add something to that.
And I'd say briefly, we're almost out of time, but if you want to weigh in, please do. We're not hearing you.
How about now?
You're good now.
Okay, thank you. So there was 100 million that came to Alberta, 85 million went to First Nations, 15 million went to the Métis settlements. It didn't even touch those that we needed to get reclaimed. It had a big provincial twist to it. The ones that we were involved with as settlements got left on the wayside. Wasn't enough money to really move forward on the reclamation that's required when it comes to the settlements.
Okay, thank you. We'll now go to Mr. Angus, and he has 2.5 minutes for this one.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to turn to Mr. Desjardins.
Thank you very much again to the witnesses, and I have a few more follow-up questions for President Lair. In your, as you know, as you just commented on the fact that many of these companies, particular companies that have left a massive amount of abandoned or orphaned wells, is a tremendous responsibility for the communities. This is something that Albertans are seized with. It's a massive deficit in terms of what's left to clean up. You know, our own parliamentary budget officer projects that over $1 billion is the price tag to clean this up by 2025. It's massive. You know, President Lair, you said you're involved in some of this reclamation, but just $15 million. And so the fact is, who's going to pay for this?
How about there? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, yeah. So that's a great question, Blake. We don't know. We've had oil companies go bankrupt. We've had we have a great amount of different providers. The biggest provider in our communities, of course, was Canadian Natural Resources, posting record profits, yet they don't even pay their industrial tax to us. They contest everything that we do, that when we try to hold them accountable. You know, I look in our community, I talk about Google Earth, go look at the amount of wells and the impact that's there. A lot of the old infrastructure still sits there, and land is just getting wasted away, and it hurts our hearts.
Thanks so much for that, President Lair. Now, when it comes to these companies not paying their taxes, you know, I came to this committee in previous. They've told you, and I know that you yourself have actually accessed the courts in order to try to enforce on behalf of these communities that these companies pay their basic fair share. How successful were the communities, the Indigenous communities, in that application?
They actually lost on a technicality. They won when it came to being able to use budget-based bylaws and budget-based taxation. So we will be able to hold them accountable in the future.
Thanks so much, President Lair, and I do believe this is my final few seconds. I just want to thank all the witnesses, and again, we hope that we can find ways to create a better fair share for your communities, President Lair.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move now to Mr. Bragdon, who will have 5 minutes for his round of questioning.
I believe that's going to be actually Mr. McGuire.
Okay, then we'll go over to Mr. McGuire.
Thank you.
The clock's
Chair.
yours for 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, and I thank all the witnesses for their presentations today as well. I would like to go to Chief Gale for just a moment. And I was very pleased to see that you're, got 85 partner nations. You're into a lot of clean projects and very much in favor of partnering, and you are a part of the Coastal GasLink equity transitions and others, it appears like. And so I wonder if you could just expound on the benefits of being involved in those, and if you could see, indicate others that you may be involved in.
Well, thank you. When I look at all things that are happening around the country right now, including LNG, geothermal, biomass, battery storage, I see Indigenous people leading this transition. We're the biggest owners of these renewable projects other than municipalities and governments. And I want to see our people doing more of it, because when these projects are done right, it's a way to alleviate the poverty from our communities and address the legacies of colonization. And, our people have been seeing these projects being built and the benefits not going to our people for over 100 years. So we want to find a new way to be involved in these projects. And I think that going forward, any kind of resource project in Canada is going to require Indigenous knowledge, Indigenous involvement, and social license. And when I say that, I don't want to create any anxiety or fear. I just think it's a chance to create inclusion and recovery, and that's kind of what we're promoting as members of the coalition. The one reason why I love economic development is because it's a zero-sum game. My success and my community's success doesn't have to trump your success. So with the coalition, like I said, we're not a project specific. We don't pick the projects. It's the members that come together. And so we had about 16 of our members come together to form a coalition to get equity for the Coastal GasLink pipeline. It took a long time, and they ended up being successful with 10% equity in the Coastal GasLink pipeline. And you know, that pipeline is going to be running for 30 to 50 years. That's great own source revenue for those First Nation communities to be able to build their schools or health centers and provide jobs for their
interrupt
people.
you there for a second. Yeah, thank you. Just that's great. I mean, I hate to interrupt you because it's good to hear the success story there. I was also impressed with your comments about, you know, people don't understand us, that you've got to come first with plans, that you need to be in consultations, which we heard didn't happen in some of these areas. And so I think that's a must. I know Mr. Wappas indicated that it was an unjust transition, but I think we need to look at, you know, your comment too, Mr. Wappas, that if the emissions cap is poorly implemented, it could lead to a cap on production. Which is really hurtful to our First Nations, is what he said. And I just wonder if you could expand on his comment and how you see that happening. We certainly are not talking about a cap on production, but I sympathize with his view.
Okay. Well, I would like to get a little bit more deeper than caps on production, because I think our nation has historically had barriers for First Nation in able to participate in their resource development due to the lack of capital. I don't think that any government policy should ever affect any Indigenous right to be able to move forward on a project. We need to look at some of the barriers that are not allowing First Nations to move forward. We were stripped of our wealth, and it makes it hard for us to provide equity and to be partners and reduce the risk and the cost because we can't borrow money. So if the bottleneck is access to capital for First Nations to get involved in any project that they want to do, we need to overcome that. I think the solution is to change the financing system in Canada with Indigenous people leading this transition. Indigenous people are going to decide when and where they want to be involved in a project. And if we don't have access to money, then nobody's going to be able to have access to anything. So we need to look at that by doing good business and being a good society.
And I think I have one, you know, Mr. Swampy indicated that, you know, in previous testimony that if you put a cap on production, you won't be able to produce or export LNG, so that so many First Nations are involved in and counting on, and it is a big benefit to them. So you and Mr. Swampy, can you predict that if we decrease Canadian exports, that it would be a good thing to continue to export our energy? Other countries with lower environmental standards will just step in if we don't do it, and which could raise global emissions, which is exactly what we don't want. Could you just comment on that, and Mr. Swampy as well?
I would say we're going to have to be really brief. We're at the end of this one, and I'm trying to get into one more round of 2.5 minutes for all of the members, and I have one 5-minute one left. So I'll go Chief Gale and then Mr. Swampy, but keep it nice and tight, please.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right there that, you know, the Canada has the most highest standards for environmental leadership when it comes to developing projects. I think that we can make that better by allowing First Nations to be a part of that through equity, and also including our traditional knowledge with the scientific knowledge. Our people see the changes on the ground faster than you can collect data. So I'm telling you that because I'm a land user and I can see the change when we had oil and gas in our territory. You can't deny a lake being, you know, becoming 2-island lake to 3-island lake when you're seeing all the vegetation being taken away for fracking. So traditional knowledge needs to be involved too. And I think the more you involve Indigenous people, the faster we'll get to building projects in a cleaner environment.
And sorry, Mr. Swampy, I'm not going to be able to give you the time here, but somebody else may be able to pick that up. I do need to go to my next person. So we're going to jump to Ms. Jones, who will have 5 minutes for her round of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would like to thank all of the panelists for their presentations today and for your answers to some difficult questions, I'm sure, but very helpful responses. First of all, the discussion around the orphan wells, I want to say to Mr. Saddleback, thank you for mentioning at least that those investments have been able to create Indigenous jobs in Western Canada, and it's certainly helped the environment. And I know what the PBO has said, even though they estimated at $361 million, they projected it to go to $1.1 billion by 2025. But let's not ignore the fact that industry itself has very minimal security deposits on any of this cleanup, and it has been a program implemented by the government since 2020 that has invested $1.7 million into that particular project. So I really think that in energy transition, we also need to look at when companies transition out of the industry and what they leave behind. And I'd be interested in hearing the feedback of people on the panel around that as well. I'm going to go to a second question as well, and hopefully they'll have an opportunity to answer both. I know that, especially with the First Nations major projects coalition, you guys have partnerships in LNG. You've talked several times about having equity to invest and how that contributes to Indigenous jobs. I'd like to hear where your head is in terms of that space and what the government should be doing. And also to Mr. Swampy, a question for you, that you talked about ONDRIP, and I support ONDRIP. I'm not sure if you support ONDRIP or if you are in your interpretation of ONDRIP is different from my understanding. ONDRIP will have a tremendous impact on helping and aiding Indigenous people going forward in resource development in Canada. I'm not seeing your optimism around that, and I'd like to get more clarification. So it's three questions. One is general, one is to Ms. Gale, and one is to Mr. Swanty. So you can start with the last and go backwards if you want, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Well, okay, Mr. Swampy, we'll start with you. Then we'll go Chief Gale and then general comments to the first question.
Yeah, so we advised our chiefs, and we wrote a letter to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister was nice enough to write back acknowledging our concerns and issues regarding UNDRIP. We feel it's a ambiguous law. We feel it's a law that is going to be upheld depending on the government in power. And we believe it's so ambiguous that it's going to give the legal industry a large swath in order to sue the federal government, sue industry, sue the rest of Canadian taxpayers' dollars. And it's going to be an industry that's going to balloon like you wouldn't believe. The Indigenous law industry right now is horrendous. It's huge. There are thousands and thousands of lawyers out there waiting for an opportunity to be able to sign on a First Nations to sue the federal government. And your UNDRIP is going to allow them to do that. And I disagree with the idea that Canada has the lowest deposit for environmental protection on the oil and gas industry. Canada has the best industry in the world. And I'm proud of the industry that we have in Canada. We have 14,000 self-identified Indigenous workers working in Alberta alone.
I didn't say it was the lowest. I said it was minimal. Their deposits were minimal according to the PBO report. But we can move now to my next question, and that was for the First Nations Major Projects Coalition.
Okay, and that was regards to jobs? Okay, thank you. So, so obviously when First Nations are getting involved in equity positions, along come with the jobs. So I think that right now, the way I look at it, I've worked at a gas plant for over 20 years, and I see a crisis with the baby boomers retiring and the need for us to ensure that we have opportunities for our youth in the trades and in post-secondary and university. So what we're doing is partnering with local universities and college, Construction Foundation of BC, and we're getting our people out there to get ready for this renewable transition. A lot of the jobs that our members were currently working in oil and gas are transferable. So the other main thing that the coalition is looking and helping our members with is procurement. That's another opportunity for people to be meaningfully involved, is the procurement of these projects.
Okay, and that's the end of that one. What I'm going to do now is take a little bit of liberty with the times. We have 10 minutes left if we want to have the discussion that Mr. Angus and Mr. Samar had asked to have at the beginning of the meeting. So with the 10 minutes, I'm going to do 2.5 minutes for each group. And we're going to have to be pretty tight with that. So at the end of the 2.5 minutes, I'm going to jump in so we can wind it up within 10 minutes. So Mr. Bragdon, you're up first, and I'll give you 5 minutes or 2.5 minutes on the clock here.
That's right. Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks to each of the witnesses today and guests. It's been tremendous and very insightful for all of us. I appreciated your insights in hearing this information. I truly hope more and more Canadians have access to your perspective and hear your very important perspective to be heard during times like this. The opportunity that's before Canada is incredible right now. We have amazing potential as a country in the face of what's happening geopolitically, with all the instability that there is around energy supply and food supply and resource supply around the world. Canada is looked to as a safe haven, can be looked to as a safe haven, and could be very much a reliable partner for a world that's desperate for reliable sources of energy and food under some of the best environmentally regulated circumstances. And our Indigenous people play such an important role in that and add such credibility to our sector. And hearing the testimony that we've heard from you today is extremely powerful. And I think more and more Canadians need to hear that, because we have a great news story. So I'd like to turn it to Mr. Swampy and Ms. Gale and Mr. Saddleback just to give a brief remark each on your thoughts around how there's real potential left in our resource and energy sector that we just need to tell the story of and promote rather than trying to move away from it. I'll start with you, Mr. Swampy.
Yeah, sure. And like I said before, if you work in the oil and gas industry, and we've been steeped in the oil and gas industry on our First Nation for the last 70 years, reaping some $2 billion worth of royalties from Bonnie Glen deposit. So we know the impacts of both environmental damage and the work that we have to do to partner with our company, our partner companies in the oil industry. And we've seen the kind of positive, the kind of resources that they apply towards environmental protection. And we're, happy to be able to see the kind of cleanup that they do and have done with the 2,500 wells around our area. And we think that they have the capacity and the knowledge, the capability to be able to transition us properly into the green energy environments. Thanks.
Sorry, and with regrets, we're out of time on that one, so I need to go over to Mr. Sorbera to keep it moving and make sure that everybody gets their last 2.5 minutes in. I will say, though, that from anyone participating today, if there are questions that you've heard, things you want to expand on, we do welcome up to a 10-page written brief in addition to the testimony we've had today. I know it's asking a lot, but if you have time or additional thoughts, you can send that in through the clerk. With that, Mr. Sorbera, we'll go to you for 2.5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I wasn't expecting to have a follow-up, but that's great. To Mr. Swampy, I've listened to your concerns today and comments, and also understand full well that the energy sector in Canada and that the world, frankly, I wrote about this several weeks ago in an op-ed, needs more Canadian energy, whether be it either renewable or non-renewable, and it's very important that we, in the context of the world that we live in now, that energy comes from Canada. I truly believe that from coast to coast to coast. With that, how would you describe the opportunities that are currently available for young Indigenous folks to enter the energy sector here in Canada?
Well, I think the first and biggest opportunity is the blue hydrogen transition that we're seeing in Alberta, both up north and south. The 6 big oil sands companies are applying a lot of their resources towards this, and we hope the government is going to be able to back them in this venture, including carbon sequestration and so forth. I think Alberta can be the leader in providing hydrogen. Europe, Germany just signed an agreement, with the Middle East countries to buy 2,000 tons of hydrogen a year from them, or per day from them. The Chinese government has committed to 200,000 pounds of tons of hydrogen per day from the international market. So Canada has to be on that precipice, and I think it's First Nations who want to get into the STEM programs, who want to be a part of this, and we need help from both the industry and the government to do that.
Okay. And I will say, I wish to say thank you, Mr. Swampy, in terms of acknowledging the role that the energy sector has played, continues to play. If you look at the monthly trade statistics, like the last month, 30% of all money that was earned in this country came from strictly oil and gas sales. And that's not myself quoting the numbers, directly from Statistics Canada. So it continues to be a significant sector for our economy, and a significant sector for nearly the 900,000 Canadians that directly depend for their livelihoods on the sector. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. We're going to go now to Monsieur Simard, who will have his final 2.5 minutes.
Merci.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our witnesses for elucidating us on this topic. And I would like to pass the mic to a colleague.
I appreciated some of the reflections you shared. In a conversation earlier, you spoke about compensation in particular. And we've had other witnesses to this committee talk about Iron and Earth, for example, talk about a national upskilling initiative for fossil fuel industry and Indigenous workers to the tune of $10 billion over 10 years to support 1 million workers. We've had the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives speak about a just transition benefit and a just transition transfer. I'm wondering if you would be open to sharing more in terms of insights for this committee on what kind of compensation you think is required as we move through a truly just transition.
Who's the question for? Sorry.
Questions for President Lair?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
So can short version of the question again, please?
What kind of compensation, if you want to elaborate more on the compensation you feel is required to support Indigenous workers in a just transition?
Oh, thank you. Sure. So when I look at it, I look at it all carte blanche. So I look at what's required to bring Indigenous people up to parity with all other Canadians, so I'm not going to say that there's any one set amount. I think you have to take a look at where people are statistically when you look at health, education, financial resources, and look at it in that way to as a benchmark to create equality across the road. And I'm suggesting that part of that can come about through the saving of the human race, in my mind, by ensuring that we have our trees.
Thank you.
We're out of time there. And finally, Mr. Angus, you have the last 2.5 minutes today.
Thank you. Two quick questions. The Alberta Federation of Labor says the transition is happening. Workers for the Canadian Labour Congress say we need a plan. The energy workers from Iron and Earth are saying their members are ready. They want to move forward on moving to the transition. When I listen to my committee colleagues from the Liberals and Conservatives, I often think I'm at the just transition denialism study. So, Chief Gale, for your members, are you seeing that the just transition, that an economic transition is underway and we need to be ready for it?
So I believe that Indigenous partners and communities are the key partners in making sure that we meet our net zero goals by 2050. If we're left behind, it's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
And we definitely want to be a part of the solution. We are very innovative, we're resilient, we have the expertise in our communities. You know, I just feel that this is a huge opportunity for this country.
Yep.
And if we want to address climate change meaningfully, then we have to ensure Indigenous rights and the benefits are finally at the forefront of any new development. And
Wonderful.
yeah, I just
Okay,
think that
could you? I'm running out of time, so
yeah.
could you send us some recommendations we can look at, because I think that voice is really, really important. So it would be very helpful. And Mr. Swampy, I just want to close on that because I think this issue of Indigenous rights is fundamental. I'm listening to you talking with the Conservatives that UNDRIP and the climate targets can't be moved ahead without Indigenous consent. But Mr. Swampy, you're on the record speaking out against UNDRIP in numerous publications because it would slow down oil and gas projects. So how is it okay to say we shouldn't have Indigenous consent that would slow down oil and gas projects, but now you need Indigenous consent from groups that want to expand oil and gas? Don't you think that's kind of a strange contradiction?
We already have consent with the ESG guidelines. I don't believe UNDRIP is going to give us any further or more power than we already have.
Well, then why did you speak out against it?
If we had ESG guidelines in the 1970s, we wouldn't have the environmental problems we have today, because First Nations would be in charge of development of the natural resources.
But you said that this was the best industry, so why do we have environmental problems if that big, great industry, shouldn't they have handled that?
Well, no, I mean, we have environmental protection and regulation that's sufficient to protect our country, and we have Canadians running these businesses. We don't need another level of regulatory hurdles to go through in bureaucracy. I mean, it's big government.
To oversee the industry.
Okay. Sorry, I have to jump in. We're out of time now. So I would like to just say to each of our witnesses, thank you so much for your very important insights that you've shared today. I know we had the first meeting that we weren't able to make happen because of votes, and so I really appreciate you coming back today and sitting with us while we got through more votes today. So really appreciate the invitation is there if you have additional thoughts to submit those to us. And you're free to sign off now, unless you want to stay for the last part of our last couple of minutes here. But don't feel you have to. Thank you so much, and have a great evening. Now, for the committee members, just before I get into responding to Mr. Simard and Mr. Angus's question from the beginning, I just want to say that June 1st, on Wednesday, the plan is to try to conclude the current study with Ministers Wilkinson and O'Regan appearing, along with officials for the first hour. And then the second hour, we actually have a second panel of witnesses coming in. And I'd like to carve off about 10 minutes at the end for drafting instructions. If anybody has drafting instructions, it would be great to have those sent to the clerk in advance so that if we need to get them translated, we can. So that's going to be hopefully the plan for Wednesday. To both Charlie and Mario's point about where are we at, where we come from in this study, I just want to go through the parameters that I have tried to work within and to respect, given the motion that was given to us. So the motion included up to that the study was going to have up to 12 sessions and that be concluded, including I think the intent was to table by June 17th. So it was a very tight parameter dealing with the analysts and the clerk in order to try to get to that timeline. We were actually hoping to wind up before the constituency week that we just had, so we could have a first draft by next week. We've had to carry it over now because there was a meeting that was canceled with the ministers that was agreed to with all of the whips without any discussion with myself as the chair. We've lost time to votes. We've lost time to these types of things, which has put an impact on us. We also heard or know that the government intends to introduce just transition legislation sooner than later. And in the discussion for the study, the hope was to actually have it, our study concluded before that legislation is introduced. We could perhaps try to influence it. So with Wednesday, we are going to have the 8th study. which I know doesn't get to 12, but if we're going to, and there was also, I would say, the final sort of context piece is I've heard from the committee, including Mr. Angus, that it would be good to actually conclude some of the studies that we have started. And so we've also tried carving off some time to get through reports, and my intention was to try to conclude the witnesses today for just transition, work with what we have, but then to get the analysts working on that and finishing up some of the studies that we have on the go already. I'd also like to mention we have the low carbon fuel study that we still need to get back to from the last Parliament that was put forward as a possible discussion that is on the table. And we still have an unresolved or a proposed study from Mr. Simard for a 3-study session that I don't see how we can get to before the end of June, but that would then start building our agenda for September. The master list was shared with everybody. We had 159 witnesses put together. And if you do the math over 8 to 12 sessions, we had too many witnesses to try to fit in with that length of study. We have tried to make it proportional to the seats on the committee. And the with that, the way the numbers will stand as of Wednesday, end of Wednesday, will be that the Liberals have had 16 of their witnesses come before the committee, the Conservatives 11, the Bloc 4, and the NDP 3. And so Liberals 16, Conservatives 11, Bloc 4, and NDP 3. And with that, I also want to point out that not everybody who is on the list has accepted the invitation to attend. Not everybody has been available to participate, but everybody who has not been able to actually attend the sessions has been invited to submit a 10-page brief. So we've made every effort that we can to hear from everybody that was put forward on the list. And so those were the parameters I was working with. That is the efforts that I have made with the team to try to respect the desire of the committee to meet that June 17th deadline, which is extremely optimistic, extremely ambitious, but that is hopefully gives at least some idea of where things have gone over since we started this particular study. So, Mr. Angus, you have your hand up, and we do have I was told a hard 6 o'clock deadline because there's a room. This room is getting used at 6:30, and they need to reset it. So please be really tight with your comments. We'll go. Charlie, Greg, Mario, I don't know if there's anybody else, but my mic's going to get cut here at any moment.
Okay, well, I'll just be very short. I think this is total bad faith, Mr. Chair, absolute bad faith. You never said, ever, that this was going to be divided up between seat proportion. That is a major, major decision that you made. So what you've done is you have not allowed us to have our witnesses be heard. And it will certainly favor the government. It will favor the Conservatives. As I said, am I sitting at a committee on just transition denialism? Without having the voices that are key on this report is a joke. So it doesn't really matter what I say about drafting instructions because we have not been able, as New Democrats, to bring forward credible witnesses. I'm hearing the same witnesses I heard the last time that the Conservatives brought forward. You're bringing forward farmers' organizations when you're ignoring Athabasca Chippewa, the BC of Union Indian Chiefs, Indigenous Climate Action, Labor's Leading on Climate Initiative, Workers' Action Center. I just have to say that what I've seen from you and this committee is real bad faith. You've never, ever, ever told us that you were going to try and limit our input based on an arbitrary decision around seat allocation. So if that's how we're going to move forward, then we're going to play a lot more hardball with this committee from a New Democrat perspective. Things that you expect that are going to be easy to get through are not going to get through based on the kind of bad faith that I've witnessed here today.
To that point, though, I will say that the list was shared. I have been very transparent in who has been invited and where it's gone. You have had the opportunity
You did not share. You shared a list. You didn't say who was going to be witnesses. We never had that discussion. We trusted you.
The list went out. The master list of everybody, yeah.
You sent out a master list. You didn't tell us who was going to be chosen.
Well, I'll need to check with the team after to see what. Anyway, I've been trying to keep things moving along here, and that's what I'll say. So I hear you. It's unfortunate you feel that way. I have next Mr. McLean and then Mr. Simard, and like I say, we need to be out of here shortly.
Mr. Chairman, you're doing a good job. Thank you. And I would make somewhat similar decisions if I was in your chair. I take Mr. Angus's point that the transparency about which of the witnesses on the list were chosen wasn't clear to us. Nevertheless, there's proportionally, I would make the different argument that 16 to 11 is not proportional to our representation here in the committee or in Parliament, if you will. And I would ask you to look at that. But let me put something on the table here that I think is, a progressive move forward here. You're fighting two different requirements here. One of which in this study was we have a minimum of 12 meetings, and the other of which is we report by June 17th. And you're choosing the latter, but not the former. So if I could suggest we choose the latter one and push the study out when we have to report back on this, as opposed to rushing towards a report that may or may not be considered by the government in the drafting of their legislation. We can have that report, and it's in a fulsome, more fulsomely reported later in the parliamentary session, presumably in the fall, or if we have to have these meetings sometime in the summer between ourselves, so be it. But I would suggest that there's a way to get that math back into equation. But 16, 11, 4, and 3. Like I say, it doesn't seem far off to me, just a little off. And if we can get square on that, make that decision would be better for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that. And I only received the split a few minutes ago, and so I hear what you're saying, and I can happily look at it. I will also say that the intention was to have a subcommittee meeting before the end of the session. We can do that sooner than later, and if we want to make this an ongoing priority, I'm happy to do that. And we can have in a subcommittee meeting a discussion about how we want to balance witnesses. And hey, if we want to have all 157 here, we can fill the fall calendar with this. But the government's legislation is going to get out ahead of us, and where do we want to be with this? So that's a discussion I'm happy to take to subcommittee, and just in the interest of moving the room availability forward for today.
Right.
And Mr. Simard.
I will try to not be as abrasive as Charlie, but from the get-go, it was a very bad idea to say that we will have either 8 to 12 meetings, because planning a study on 12 meetings is very different than 8, and if not only because of the list of witnesses. There at the subcommittee, there was nothing discussed about the witnesses nor about the themes that were to be spoken about as in priority. Personally, this study does not strike me as representative of the spirit of the witnesses from Quebec, because we didn't hear them. The witnesses were chosen randomly, so were the themes. Also, the subject was a little bit too large, in my opinion, but we don't have to talk about that. But the themes that we talked about will not allow us to have a report that is consistent. So what I propose for the next studies is to have some clearer rules on how the witness list works, and that we have a prioritization done in the subcommittees in order for us to be more efficient, and so that we can give a bit of guidance to the studies, because now I feel like it's been a bit of a waste of time. And I'm not trying to criticize my conservative colleagues, but to advance the idea that there could be clean oil is one thing, but to taint the entire study that talks about the just transition with a list of witnesses that held that position, I don't think that benefits public. The public, and I think that's why we should be talking about it in subcommittees.
You had also had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I agree as well. With 157 witnesses listed, there's no way that we would ever get to them all, given the time frame that we're at here. There's only about 3 years left in the mandate. And so I just want to say that, well, apparently there's 3 years. I just want to say as well, there are other sectors, and Mr. Angus actually alluded to one that I think is pretty pertinent in a just transition as well, and that is the agricultural industry. And I'm just wondering if the Canola Growers Association has been one of the ones that were contacted in it, because they play a major part. It is a major part of their whole research program for the types of canola product that could be used in biofuels and another area. It's a particular area of the industry that's certainly going to be very, very impacted by any decisions that we make here or any decisions that the government comes forward with in legislation. So that's all I would say on that one. And if we need a meeting or two more to accommodate some of that, I have no problem trying to do that. And if Mr. Angus feels that there's some witnesses that he wants to have in those as well, that's fine with me.
Okay, thank you. And Charlie, briefly, if you would, because we do need to get out of here so they can get through and ready for the next committee.
I just wanted to be very clear. Whenever I've been on a committee, if we had a lot of witnesses, we sat down and said, what are our priorities? We weren't given that opportunity. So I thank my Conservative colleagues for offering to say we could expand, because I agree with Mr. Simard. I can't sign off on a report at this point. To me, it's been a complete waste of time if we stop it now and we don't have those other voices. We will just be saying, well, you guys can do it. We can't sign off. But it's about the process. We all come up with many, many witnesses, and then we come back and say, okay, well, who do we need to hear from? How do we feel this is going to work? But if you're going to say that that's going to be decided on seat allocation in the House, then it's a waste of our time as well, because then I can't bring forward, well, I think for the good of the committee, these are witnesses that need to be heard. I'm going to have to be a lot more parochial in my decisions, and that's going to affect the quality of our work. So from here on in, we're going to have to decide how we're going to operate.
Yep, I've heard you. Just as we prepare to gavel out, I understand that Minister Melillo has a big weekend ahead, so I just want to wish you all... Well, no, aren't you...
Can I ask for it? Council now, or what?
Anyway, have a good one, and meeting's adjourned.